All right, let's dive into some Dutch legal stuff today.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, we're looking at the Wet Pleziervaartuigen.
Okay.
It basically means Pleasure Craft Act, like the rules for boating in the Netherlands.
Uh-huh.
But here's the thing. This one's from a while back,
Okay.
like 2010 to 2016. It's like a time capsule.
I see.
Shows us how they thought about boating back then.
Cool.
Right away, in Article 1, they defined what a pleziervaartuig is.
Meaning?
Pleasure craft, in Dutch.
Okay.
And they're really specific. It's got to be between 2.5 and 24 meters long.
So, like, not tiny boats.
Right, and not huge yachts either, just that middle range
Interesting.
for sports or leisure. And check this out.
Wait,
They even include water scooters in there.
Oh, wow.
Article 1.2 specifically. They were ahead of their time with that. You know, water scooters were getting popular then.
Yeah, makes sense.
But then, hold on, Article 2 gets kind of funny.
How so?
It's this huge list of what's not a pleasure craft.
Ah.
Like, okay, canoes, kayaks, those make sense.
Yeah.
Then competition boats, different rules there.
Right.
But then it gets weird. Steam-powered vessels. Submarines.
Submarines. Seriously.
I know, right? Who's cruising around in a steam-powered submarine?
Beats me. Yeah.
Anyway, Article 3 gets down to business. Safety first.
Makes sense.
No selling or using anything dangerous. That's boats, parts, engines, the whole deal.
Right.
But they didn't just care about the people on board.
Oh.
It says right there, dangers to property, entity, the environment.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, pretty forward thinking for back then.
Totally.
Okay, Articles 5 and 7. This is something you've probably seen.
What's that?
The CE marking.
Oh, yeah.
A little symbol on like
Yeah.
everything.
Right. It means it's safe, right?
Exactly. Meets EU standards.
Yeah.
Like a stamp of approval.
Okay.
And get this. Article 3.4 says even parts of the boat need to meet those standards.
Wow, they really thought of everything.
But buckle up. Articles 8 through 14,
Mm.
this is where it gets bureaucratic.
Oh.
Conformity assessment procedures, they call it. Basically, making sure those safety standards are actually met.
Sounds complicated.
It is. It's a whole system, like a machine.
Okay.
So you got the manufacturers, obviously.
Right, they make the boats.
Then there are authorized representatives, kind of like middlemen,
I see.
and then notified bodies.
What are those?
Basically, independent watchdogs. Like inspection agencies, they make sure everything's legit.
Gotcha.
So all these articles, they lay out who does what, from design reviews to testing, even the paperwork.
Caro.
Super thorough. But then Article 15 throws a curveball. You
Yeah.
could trade partially built boats without the full CE mark.
Really?
Yeah, under certain conditions, of course. They probably did it to make things easier between countries.
Makes sense.
But imagine a boat show, right? All these half-built boats, signs saying, don't try this at home.
I can picture it.
Okay, back to the serious stuff. Article 16, the government has some power here. Even if a boat has the CE mark, they can step in if it's not safe.
Oh, wow.
Take it off the market, whatever they need to do.
So they're keeping an eye on things.
Yeah, safety standards change, and sometimes things slip through the cracks.
That's true.
In Article 17, this is the list of don't even think about it stuff.
Like what?
Selling non-compliant boats, using misleading markings.
Basically trying to cheat the system.
Right. Big no-no. And then Article 24, this is interesting.
Tell me more.
Transition periods. Some engines got extra time to fully comply.
Like a grace period.
Exactly. Probably to give manufacturers time to adjust, new emission standards, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we've seen how they define things, how they handled safety, the whole process, even those weird exceptions.
A lot to unpack.
What stands out to you so far?
Honestly, the submarine thing for sure. But also how they were thinking about the environment back then. That's really cool.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how things have changed since then.
Totally. What do you think? Yeah, it's like looking back, but also kind of looking forward, right?
Totally. It's like a snapshot of boating back then. But things change so fast.
Oh, for sure. Boats are way different, even from just a few years ago.
Think about it. Electric boats are getting big now, and there's all this talk about sustainable materials, eco-friendly stuff.
Right. And then you've got the plastic pollution problem. That's a big one.
Yeah.
New rules popping up all the time because of that.
It's all connected, isn't it? The
Yeah.
technology, the environment, even like what people think is important, it all shapes how we see boating, how we regulate it.
Totally. And something else to think about, the pandemic. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
That changed everything for outdoor stuff. Everyone wanted to be out on the water.
Right.
Probably put a strain on things, maybe even caused new safety issues. Who knows?
That's a good point. It's like a chain reaction. One thing changes, and boom, everything else changes too.
Yeah. So even though this law is from a while back, it kind of helps us understand how we got to where we are now with boating.
Makes sense.
And that's where you come in, listener. What about where you live? Have you seen any changes, new rules, new kinds of boats?
Yeah, or maybe new marinas.
Yeah.
Or efforts to clean up the water, you know?
We want to hear about it. It all adds to the story.
It's like we're all part of this, right?
Totally. Okay, but before we get too deep into that, there are a couple more things in the Wet Pleziervaartuigen I want to mention. Remember the CE marking?
Oh, yeah, that's like the gold standard for boat safety, right?
Right. Well, Article 7A, it adds a little twist. It says the CE marking also means the boat meets all the other relevant EU rules.
Okay.
But here's the catch. Sometimes, during those transition periods we talked about, manufacturers could pick which rules to follow.
Hold on, so you could have two boats, both of the CE mark, but they might be following different rules.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's important to know what you're looking at.
For sure. The CE mark is a good start, but you got to do your homework.
Especially if you're buying a used boat. All those stickers and stuff, are they real? Always good to ask questions.
Don't just take someone's word for it, you know?
Nope. Knowledge is power when it comes to this stuff, especially safety. And speaking of things you shouldn't do, remember that list of no-nos in Article 17?
Yeah, the don't even try it list.
Well, this one really stood out to me. The rule about misleading markings on a boat.
Okay.
Not just the CE mark, but anything that could trick someone into thinking a boat's safe when it's not.
Basically, no lying.
Right. Transparency is key. You got to be able to trust the information you're getting. No one wants a boat that's going to fall apart.
Makes sense.
So listener, remember, whether you're buying, renting, whatever, do your research, ask questions, and don't be afraid to dig a little deeper.
Good advice. So what else did this law have to say about, like, the bigger picture of boating in the Netherlands?
Well, remember how we were talking about how the Dutch, they're like really connected to the water, right? Their laws really show that.
Yeah.
This Wet Pleziervaartuigen, it's just one part of a much bigger system.
It's not just about pleasure boats.
No way. They have rules for everything. Big cargo ships, tiny fishing boats, you name it.
Wow.
And it's not just safety either. They care about protecting the environment, making sure people act responsibly on the water.
So finding that balance, right? Letting people enjoy the water, but making sure it stays healthy.
Exactly. And that's a tough thing to do. It's a challenge everywhere, not just in the Netherlands. How do we keep the water safe, clean, and open for everyone?
Big question, for sure.
It is. But maybe looking at laws like this one can give us some ideas.
Yeah, like a starting point, you know?
Right. And it all comes back to that idea of everyone sharing the responsibility. We all have a part to play, right? Whether you own a boat, you build them, or you just love being on the water. What about you, listener? Have you seen any efforts to promote responsible boating where you live?
Yeah, anything like that.
Tell us about it.
We want to hear your thoughts.
Let's keep this conversation going.
It's amazing, right? All this thought they put into it.
Yeah, it's not just about the rules. It's like the bigger idea behind it.
It's exactly. Safety, being responsible out there, even how it affects the environment, all of that.
It's like they were saying, hey, we love the water, so let's enjoy it, but, you know, take care of it too.
And that idea of everyone doing their part, it really comes through in the law.
Definitely. It's not just the government saying, do this, don't do that. It's everyone working together, right?
For sure.
Like, remember that post-market surveillance thing? Perfect example. It's not just on the government to make sure boats are safe after they're sold.
Right.
Manufacturers got to keep track. Boat owners got to report problems if they see them. It's a team effort.
Totally. And that goes for the environment, too. We can't just expect the government to clean up after everyone.
Nope. We all got to be smart about how we use the water, think about what we leave behind.
Makes sense.
And that's even more important now with all this stuff about climate change, pollution, all that. It's like, what would it take to make boating actually sustainable?
That's a good question.
Electric boats. Are those the answer? What about like new materials, different ways to build boats so they don't pollute as much?
Yeah, those are big questions. It's like we need a whole new way of thinking about boating for the future.
Right. And maybe this Wet Pleziervaartuigen, it gives us some clues, some ideas to start with. It shows you can have fun and 80 be responsible, right?
Definitely.
It's about finding ways to enjoy the water, but also protect it for everyone, now and later, you know?
I love that. It's not about stopping boating. It's about doing it better, smarter.
Exactly. Maybe it means trying new things like boat sharing or marinas that are built to be eco-friendly.
Yeah, or even just little things like
Yeah.
how we dispose of our trash when we're on the water or trying to use less fuel.
Yeah, those little things add up, right?
They do. It all comes back to that shared responsibility. We all have a part to play in making sure we can still enjoy boating for years to come.
So listener, next time you're out on the water, think about that. Think about how you can make a difference, even a small one.
Yeah, and if you see something cool, some new idea for sustainable boating, let us know. We want to hear about it.
Definitely. The more we share, the more we learn, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Wet Pleziervaartuigen.
It's been a fun one.
It has. It's been a fascinating look at how the Dutch do things, and hopefully it's given you some things to think about. Until next time, happy sailing.